good.
Okay. Contention was Jiminy failure to adopt statutory direction for use drones as a dangerous international question that magnifies every impact of calls and global disability robbers. And 13 use of drones is given friends and foes green light to employ them in operational and effective relation policy to utilize entire regions and upset orders consider this Iran carries out the striking and Syria, Russia picks up militants, Ukraine, Turkey, arms, Paris, corruption, and Moscow. My point to Washington State, we learned about Washington youth is untaking consequence for drone warfare. But does go since such Washington failure to establish a clear role for itself that would create a global relevant standard for between legitimate rogue uses and it makes global power, global great power war inevitable by tempting leaders to use drones too often causes escalation as traditional checks on apply posture. 13 because drones will effective in business governments maybe can be used in too frequently when drones eliminate the risk conscious of the president. It's more like in launch boards too often the same applies internationally. I lost the parade of drones assuming deficient risk and conscious I law legal law to chase on terrorist nation makes you equally attack resulting blowback and retaliation civilizing relations between countries to information hard like the US and trying to making the long term human life much greater legal restrictions need to be tightened. These conflicts go nuclear, Rex global stability boil 13 consequences for drones is a concept of instability will be radically shaped stability among the powers storming nuclear deterrence over competition are rare because they are prone to escalation. Same people are willing to engage in warfare for flights to test result one can imagine Arab states deploying drones to test result which can constitute program misinterpret and attack the temptation to use them. My spiral rivals nuclear program might prove a strong towards a road to turn relationship between nuclear powers maximizing the risk of a spiral conflict. Incredible external oversight key leads into international modeling and allows US to effectively crack down on rogue drone programs. But here, 12 the administration establishing presence of the nation may follow for. Now countries in relation to the United States here says TK responsible without credible oversight and for such US behavior will vacuum anything goes to the right result in the sun stage other countries programs would bring all the United States out oversight these nation carry more weight. So we use special other systems to adopt similar systems of government return down to the investigation to apply root oversight to reveal discovery community concerns now is key to shape international norms, and only the U.S. can lead. Lack of rules undermines all other norms of violence. Will to be 13. America has an undeniable effect in establishing which norms are second norms. Have set a precedent so appropriate warfare drones of advocates to consider the unintended constantly legitimacy and arms use of well not undeterred return over restrained current practice. The use of this opportunity to change norms the countries begin to follow the presence of the United States. We can resist and violence targeting cycle 2. Avoid the risk to assassination of other circumstances. Once the use of drones will accountability could come to a serious area of China or Russia was like the program might be terrifying. That prevents hedge decline and allows the U.S. to set global norms that avoid the worst consequences. Use spoil 13 as living approach to it and to drones wide and minimize local opposition strikes leaders and population to approve a crucial step towards the mitigation of the concept of drones will be internationally recognized norms is not realistic. The United States stop using drones or assume other countries do it. The teachings of the ball remains is to ensure that use are consistent international and standards without norms of drone proliferation or proliferate the control law enforcement will be perfect conviction. Being just norms taking the use as a leader of the United States has an opportunity to show leadership and developing legal protection of might avert the worst concept unchecked. Pursuit drones have a serious constitutional towards global position into America's overtake. The United States and different sovereign forces drones by extended reliance on drones will demoralize right into U.S. sentiment and holding America's enemies of pride. Governments with a rationality of resist U.S. national order are written by strikes in the sky preventing those is a matter of version in the world of rights and powers changing geopolitical alignments and decline of U.S. leadership causes global conflict. Change 11. The global distribution of power shifting the result will be world less use of after a ban by the U.S. Jimmy Ukraine South Coast green muted great power compensation to U.S. wars and however history has power decline results in military competition between U.S. centers stability free trade free markets global trade proliferating global population post hedgehog war return to regional black trade conflicts survival awardable hegemony is one and greater war emerges and hegemony is critical to solve extinction. But I love when we live in the great circle change the global order yet endure the most living feature being the lack of we are not as out some fantasy imagine death kind of system of American empire will be engaging in selling successful stewardship of the global order as a growing global position. The military has been the greatest force in the world as America movement is higher conceivably there will be no human civilization left in the world is not keep signing out pressure war inside America changing every ethnic question pressure grip peace to global position will social democracy rights increasing liberation of the women the double access and tenfold increase in changing reduction in conflict as for our military industrial complex that's the dream how the world looked like before the establishment of itself had the 21st century saw a death toll of 100 million calculating such 99% drop to that to the war we're heading for world characterized by multiple variety but we developed the U.S. part of the U.S. is marching us for returning for war marching us for a global position based on action for rather than colonial U.S. America relative global position in East Asia South Asia Pacific Asia now unfolding we control empirics war for the empirical size of should be capable to submission war continuing to accumulate the clearest empirical implication is that combination selling the cluster car complicating divorce is the only polar structure that appears to influence conflict polarity unipolarity 2000 years of history civil systems makes so precisely properties implied by the theory of war is at its lowest level in history because of U.S. primary best statistical support proves Owens 11. Violent conflict has been decreasing when it comes to violent conflict among and within countries since it got better regardless of the non-Russian international war Mac is familiar with during a peace commercial peace and notion people around the end of war these possible mechanisms peace none of the mixed between the other houses at the rate of peace inducing factors having to work and coincide like we need to explain this in circle that's our American Jiminy hegemonic stability theory a source for the global economy to remain open one power country mistake leaping for the global public goods keeping the sea lines open threatening to withdraw protection of both the American Jiminy causes the set decline of political deaths in the world like use foreign policy is ruthless self-interest of the great power he used to make your mind be due to cause or proxy cause consider academic growth and trade, which are render violence irrational first, watching proud of the country to embrace market capitalism produce sustainable academic growth second, the access led very free union partly alternative passive led market capitalism best model. It also eliminates incentives fees selling alliance globalization is caused by the United States world hegemony simply made the concern the spread of democracy, watching support democracy, but others have become more much more widespread and hedge decreases structural violence. Any alternative dooms humanity through deprivation of darknet. Love of the evil of Washington since it's only the most rapid growth of global non-middle class the world's ever seen. Humorous world powers service action before the record economic development was painfully transparent. The elites got richer, the masses got poor. The America show of engineering and the international order, and now more than half the planet's life's abundance history. Sequence is undeniable the power of America made the world far better place. Global station body of America made America number one of its most violent rejections movements. We have the force we need to manage the global year. They can toss and dump certain became ourselves the loss of Germany. The result of our own mistakes. We got the global leadership and ensuring the owner great expansion of global welfare receive, but also the great consolidation of global peace. And the world is getting better now because the hedge is peaceful. BuzzFeed 12 years unipolar peaceful. Pinker suggests wars coming peace wars will become harder. How do we scare that with him? Ontario Pinker is focused on the outcomes of war. Advertised abuse. This is not a use of polarity. It's not the number of years ago how war has been a war over whether this system holds from more peaceful you do polarity. Fine. We know the process based on solid data is right. War is becoming rarer and less steadily. The deadliness is declining. Disengagement when it's strongly lead to insulate draw. In the U.S. again, no risk of hedge bad. U.S. engagement and reintervention is inevitable. Only a question of making effective taking love. In theory, the United States could refrain to being better practice sentiment against the volume of the United States intervening again was normal for the United States historical records. It's not a policy not intervention. Whether one ultimately is very complex, the lack of consistency remains even with GDP. The policy 93% on New Straight was not sufficient for the United States to award their number of obvious hostile conditions by the United States intervention. The president might find himself situation conflict is hard to avoid. Some hope that some military compared the necessity of prevent intervening more likely to simply prevent intervening. In fact, like this was experienced in Iraq and Afghanistan. Administration said refuse and resulting lengthy, unsuccessful conflicts, also conflicts that improve achievement long-term fight wars quickly and inclusively. Focus on deterrence and democracy is key to avoiding crisis escalation. Reject infinite root causes that debility action more core. Years of war focus on ethnic differences on races, poverty, social justice, resource, grief here. Many of the factors of realities that mean factors contribute to war. They may be infants that motive factors, no factors, no aggression, sign. The existence of such factors that surveys lead war. The key to cooling profit. No one has to demonstrate the kind of robust correlation to correlation cause of war that is reflected in direct peace given the difficulties to overcome these in Portugal war. Exerts dependent on the solution we do most. The generation government structures play a central role in system peace and essential insight on direct systems on we fail. Because they discuss here they even enable the peace resource disposal of ruthless regimes, major wars, absent democracy, ineffective, absent effective deterrence, social constructive with all cases. There's simply too many variables. We should insist on testing out against the world and all result. That's just useless to each other. Playing the United States program should create a statutory calls of action for damages flows unlawfully injured by targeted killing operations or the errors. Last condition to its solvency. The plan establishes legal norms and ensures compliance with the laws of war habits. 13 Congress shall authorize damages to families, individuals, killed, experts review, and provide judicial scrutiny. Legal business board of victims of remedy. Group judges leave dividing without fear. Airline leave it terrorist at large judges by non-restriction or very restricted decide more than not. They have enough evidence of the visa model. They must go and examine legal arguments and say with the laws judicial review. The key civil action resolving permissible scope of complicated. The broad definition and if they also increase radicalization court should be able to review with a consistent constitution the law which requires the words to be consistent with the laws of war and court cause of action creates a deterrent effect that makes officials think twice about drones. Drawback of judicial review doesn't apply. Logic 13. In the after-fact damages, all concerns are indicated the dark review doesn't raise the same concern of diversity. Those targeting represent plaintiff post-hoc through errors judicials, judges routinely review officers such as whether officers act in lawful substance, Guantanamo litigation, diversity judges are more competent to resolve whether such a the government says use classified info the manner of balance and secrecy and ability because there was the sources TK would have security clearances council Congress might also look to the HRC as a legal doctrines concerns to overcome as long as Congress creates cause of action such as rise in secrecy immunity and placing them carefully considered procedure legal issues will be vitiated concerns about those liability officers are acting on good faith and immediately following the what's walking to the United States property demand access laws depend upon the beneficiary executive since they assume the government will please disclose unlawful officer with covering out prosecuting on cases giving priority practice on reports out these remedies will be position and damages of deterrent effect in future. Officers such as TK violate rules, there will be a liability precedent such, and the next official might think twice to make sure individual in the government claims that they will serve the legal force TK, but the exact principle to show its contracts of the minimal scrutiny and by opening the door down check considers authority and the require the government to defend searching before a neutral magistrate and simulating national security law debates preserves the agency and enhances decision making and avoids co-option. Donahue 13 simulation versus the opportunity theory and practice between alternative which means that among the concerns given the agency responsible for results simulation must strike the national security one the fact that incidents not to various rule can be great advantages to make mistakes and learn from without devastating consequences. Simulation gives series how to manage and vote effectively the one size fits all legal education appears ill suited adjustment so choice greater and secondly to look at specific demands. See simulation culture shortcomings in the way others severe mental education simulation provides a starting point student are given the agency responsible for their decisions. I didn't read the second time.
Donahue seems to be descriptive of simulations that happen when you code computer programs where you pick 6 or 7 different situations in legal proceedings. How is your app the same thing as that?
I would disagree. It talks about simulating about specific national security.
We've debated Georgetown twice. They've read the same card. The text that you decide to make 5 fonts says the simulations
That
have
is
been
an
those
example
things.
of simulation. However, we believe
Really?
that it still applies to what we're doing in this debate. And
Why?
it still applies because the entire
Your
warrant in
debate
the Donahue
is
card
one
is
scenario.
that students, the entire
We don't
warrant in
pick
the Donahue
different
card-
scenarios.
Well, first, no. Here's what you're ignoring. The negative is supposed to provide the alternate scenario.
Why are
Sure,
we
laid out one
obligated to
scenario.
provide an alternative scenario to prove that your app's a bad idea?
Well, the alternate scenario can be the status quo. Our argument, though, is that a debate that focuses
Wait, we
on
have to say the
approach-
status quo is an
You
alternative
also
scenario?
presume we don't do research before the round. We
Yeah.
would argue that
Our
before
argument-
the round, debate inculcates and incentivizes decision
Okay.
making.
Yeah.
Go through
Let's talk about
Our
those discussions you have in your squad room. Georgia Tech does not have a squad room. Georgia Tech does not have coaches. How do we have those same discussions?
Well, I believe that you two can still have discussions.
We have to discuss them amongst ourselves. That puts us at a
Yeah.
pretty big disadvantage in trying to learn about these debates.
I don't
Why
think
shouldn't we
so.
have
I
those
think
discussions
you and
in
your
debate, and why
partner
shouldn't you
are
start
very
them?
Smart. I think you and your partner are very smart and have very
Thank
good
you.
discussions. So
Let's talk about your Zhang and Shi evidence.
Yeah,
It's
that's why
relevant to our
I don't think
evidence.
it's relevant how many.
Let's talk about your Zhang and Shi evidence.
Okay.
His analysis for why we might go to more violent economies is because in the late 1960s and 70s, U.S. economic power declined relative to the power of Japanese and Western European economies, and the U.S. dollar became less attractive. How is this assumptive of the current political situation?
Well, sure. In the current political situation, Zhang and Shi.
We're way behind the euro.
Well, you haven't let me answer your question, but
Okay.
our argument is that if the United States, which empirically is the great power that is most motivated to spread things like free trade and liberal economic orders, if the United States is no longer the predominant power, that means that other countries with different economic systems based on more government control and less freedom would be the ones that get to sort of dictate internationally what economic system spreads.
The very first line from that card, which you've chosen to exclude from your speech access, this does not necessarily mean that U.S. is a systemic decline, but encompasses that the trend appears to be negative.
Yeah,
is hedge sustainable or unsustainable in the status
We would
quo?
argue that the plan makes it sustainable. Our Boyle evidence
That's not
one of the
answering my
primary-
question. Is hedge sustainable or unsustainable in the status quo?
Well, we
It
are
is-
arguing about in the world of the plan. In the world of the plan, it is.
I'm wondering what the status quo
Absent
is.
the plan, it is declining. That is.
All right,
what
you're not
is
answering my
necessary.
question.
It is
Boyle
unsustainable.
evidence.
It is unsustainable.
It
without
is
the
going to
Boyle
decline
evidence.
because of blowback from drones.
Because of blowback from drones.
Yeah.
Boyle evidence. It says that lethal drones will never be in the hands of those who use them with fewer scruples. Why would they get these lethal drones? Where do they get this technology and expertise?
Well, the technology and expertise is readily available. It's about how
Okay.
countries use them. I mean, like where they get them. There are probably several companies that
All right,
manufacture drones.
let's go to your
Our
own
argument
evidence.
Is that how you use them and there being credible international norms governing the use of drones is important and something the U.S. can be a leader on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be one off and about.
And it's on the website.
Yep.
It wants me to log into my PADS account.
Just exit out of that.
Okay.
I did the same thing for us for years.
Okay. Yeah, I got it. Yep.
You might want to do 2 desks. Sure. Okay.
So do both of you all have it?
Yes.
So I exit out of that box.
Gotta turn the camera for the 2 people watching at home.
Okay, got it. Yep.
Cool.
The affirmative approach to persuasion from a quantified perspective discourages false measures, what we consider success. Congress says this global words and academic persuasion are only seen useful to actually present all domains followed by the perfect procedure for a public policy gave for persuading the direction of statements persuasive because there's someone who persuades. We measure modern politics, election, speeches, poster, advertising, includes the individual sense of the individual tags always found in modes of persuasion, joy, your ideas the subject of persuasion. The fourth, the aggro, the privacy, posting, store policy, interjection, account, creation, lead, to convert private evidence, persuasion, individual expectation, amount of the value, but again, the publicly related to a method of measurement. However, persuasion does for and the synthetic market. Just like Jerry goes over health testing to establish health sufficient to support political data, learning to reconditional terminology and the impact of value life. Our approach to one is focus competition on insurance and reward. Down 11. We have to make our own happiness. Now, we find happiness the harder it gets when we set to make our own happiness. We're focused on insurance and reward. Research check 100 recent college graduates that compare the rates of which graduates see both pictures of the insurance and reward. The research can equal unequal conclusion. Insurance rewards actually does contribute to some well-being. It prevents us from engaging autotelectors that will actually increase our happiness. This research recommends what does not make sure every time we engage autotelectors, we remain ourselves off concerted acquisition and sources of pleasure. We also develop many internal shortcuts, addictive drugs and alcohol, ritual, unhealthy food, and chronic shopping, name a few. As long as we're focused on insurance and non-insurance, we're never enough for our missions, we're making our happiness. We have the biological ability to put our happiness through hard work. The consumer popular culture, everyone is being sold the same rate of exchange word, emerging companies are encouraged to consume more and compete. One group is opting out hardcore gamers, so are they consider autotelect into games and engage in the same time with reorientation towards insurance rewards, which really behind the 3 billion hours a week we swing the goal acceptance. The gamers are going to even realize that playing games are actually making our life more rewarding. Those players are rejecting what you see versus simulation. The way the one I see is it's not persuasive. You vote negative on presumption with August 7. But games that come to account for their success, their psychological or physiological measures. Researchers developing games include conducted interviews measured with conventional with players that performance always measured as correlate with numerical percents. The institution they use for serious games of such a manner professional place of not asset is correctly positive procedure returns always challenge situation containing the exclusive life of their operation, opening the possibility of new configuration. A capture such a result of possible within the favorite system of procedure return helps the question we need to find out the most interesting results of the game never had nothing to do with the number of players, rather those came out conversation with the interpretation for itself in the general market as been representative of the competition and more significant size and to understand procedure representation of grassroots coverage. The game shows that as a political process become hydrogen when also implemented Thomas and critic begins entering the meaning of social policy privilege one by the policy. This is a representative that have to be who MS human welfare to replace policy of all policies such as procedural total policy. When MS supports the support of nothing more than sports self, how many question Thomas is reading of them from again it is a numerical proof for there were hornets so we might not agree with September and impose a very critical against policies and problems and Thomas response would cover the source of non-numeric analysis, but if this sophisticated interrogation offers sufficient evidence of progression for girls, we need to consider the game that persuasive to the game produces deliberation next on Big Edge. Hedge on sustainable rising power to restrict velocity and non-power. Lane 11. The unipolar air is visibly drawn to the lowest with the rising nuclear power. Is driven the international system for multiple second nuclear overtures, third relativity economic power decline. You physical properties of dollars and how they roll as reserve funds under idea hegemony. These trends undermine unipolar stability and durability hegemony. Second is U.S. head gone now strive for 420. If American may be Democrat at home or abroad is being hegemony. Periodic American scale, but continually will be different, much more anarchic with their role without American hegemony. But the hegemony itself seems to be on the way. U.S. over the Pacific perceived to be less all powerful than the past in China, such as made the regional bomb itself and diagrams to try to get specific individuals combined with non-American American leadership often seem to be either unserious and inextremely clearly applied to relatively absent both heads on the main state. It was for weakers, everybody's insulting all levels, equalities, now the American geopolitics, American hegemony is hegemonic, and or promising is failing, collapses hegemony, wounded intent. The global financial economic crisis that left American empire will benefit the economic foundation for the dollars, world principle, and reserve currency is under threat. With international status of the currency reserve the fundamental aspect of like use global hegemony, Washington ballooning deficit of doctrine of the previous consistent from the dollar that is not less than retro property, American principle currency begin to reduce the overseas America's most important predator are considered $1 and the economic pressure will collapse hegemony laying down weakness. Now fundamental American economy has been a calculator of 3 decades over a day where in fact approaching the best effects of the United States emerging the current crisis of fundamental handicap loaded deficit fundamental the percent US current calculated for top of having there's a reason for or to worry the dollars of vulnerable the United States his roles in international economy reserve currency ensures American preeminence and lose its genuinely literally unaffordable amount that they imply and highlighted two new credits of value other big financial factors are either military rivals or allies that no longer use protection China's builder of non-widow commerce reflected in the trade culture to create a new currency or currency, the new reserve currency Americans find themselves open to the hegemony 50 and the U.S. generally guarantee U.S. Sino conflict with flashpoints across Asia, land in 12. The United States and China are competing for superior Asia. This time is fueling as late tensions and could lead to war. This creative power cannot be hegemonic as the regional. One of them brings the aspiration to high probability hostile flashpoints to the Korean Peninsula, Taiwan control and naval rivalry. Endlessly association strikes on 2000. Norway, the United States and China would involve other countries. Asia will send far Russia be situated behind Europe, India, Pakistan. Could entertain strikes with JDC and prepared to go for the new capital. We will see the church and civilization news are making economic rolled out and head-on coordination that keys all diseases. Weber et al. 11. Globalization turning the world into a features infection diseases. These involves too closely. They're pushing less than 30 minutes. While takes decades to come up the day by solution. Only possible when we get up to other hand 4 countries are fiscally separate dangerous cities. Cities are the same as the field in American establishing an early warning or preparing intervention into places that don't want it. And it looks like a source of hand that the country won't let us. Like U.S. and let's take the power to take over a piece of the United States remain the world's lone superpower was not likely to get any help. And disease that leads to extinction of 2008. Disease or advanced children armory this spring outside Letterberg, one Nobel Prize for discovering the factor of evolution. There are contested ahead and we live in a competition with microbes. There's no guarantee that we can survive pathogens. Evil often store immune systems that have a retain. And the given the rate of disease human race is losing the race of viruses having 2 billion year head start a victory by Homo sapien will be remarkable. Virgin virus by imperial human side cell for species that existed for 200,000 years and such often by transmuting to a tune whistle while passing a graveyard and Primacy puts us on a collision course with Iran, turns a Middle East impact. Lane 7. Because the strategy of primacy and presidents and right now, of course, for a show there are important nations that are trying to forward in armed confrontation among these there are to the progress of only Iraq or Middle East. Yes, and one of the causes attention to America's ambition in the Middle East leads to extinction, harsh and sick. Iran's like every time you use any use attack, Iran forces started like storm into Iraq, United States to be forced to use big clubs against them, blanket terrorist attack that attempts to get all solution will be normal incentivize any regional conflict. May go to the expanded and global nuclear voice and say nuclear arsenal, you can obliterate humanity and that global conflict will be all gone ahead and positive proliferation, multipolarity will solve it, however, it also 2007 in today's world ever. Nation Venezuela don't is looking for a way to constrain American power. It is harder for states to join to do like to offload nuclear and multiple powers because they have a choice of bomb partners of country can challenge the United States military power they can deter America from using the best of the turn. Nuclear retaliation, nuclear couriers, nuclear police, examining multiple power so split the job of police and rule and will also lead to exchanging helmet aid given an horrific consequence. Single failure constant question is whether to turn to war until it's all anything less is alleviating destruction to our children's generation. The danger increases so the new entrance travel humanity that state number estimate can make head causes terror 9/11 cruise lane six events 9/11 another example how Jimmy makes himself look terror if we're an offshore bounce strategy terrorism is out of power it's up to 11% of violent counteraction in America geopolitical agenda used to make full service to aggregate like Al-Qaeda defense Islamic fundamental and terrorism will go nuclear extinction helmet A nuclear is likely to state that it's significant 85 national security experts found and impact involving nuclear explosion occurring in the next 10 years terrorism the mechanism for full scale nuclear civilization we destroy the clear explosion could usher a new nuclear winter the reason only safety from birth limited nuclear action could have a devastating consequence of running World War III is a necessary and hegemonic retrenchment key to avoid your power, maintaining unipolarity, self-defeating, which is internal link on return to their office, Montier 2012. Significant competitive with the U.S. power remains separate, disengaged is the best strategy. Unipolar structure practices for conflict involving disengaged and unipolar disengaged. What I think the perspective from nuclear power predominance or self-defeating minor powers will sort of make capability either U.S. into numerous conflicts were resulting increasing major powers. Chinese states in competition with unipolar allies for whom successful less about economic unipolar minor powers will become more valory. This by U.S. power bound plans that limited capacity effective United States power can be unipolar power and multiple accountable unipolar does not have the unipolarity have within the zone destruction only by exercising restricting devil wars with unipolar powers like exercising the restraint state. The opening of restraining all the same rules of power does not really do greater influence and hegemonic retrenchment. He to prevent war with Russia and China diffuses Georgia, Taiwan, and the South China Seas. McDonald 11 for the U.S. commitments would reduce risk of cost will be outweighed by the benefits pulling back and plus of course would limit the risk of capture class with the structure of Georgia by allowing use of avoid commitments on Wazan or narrowing commitments in Asia to less than likely of a conflict over Taiwan or maritime comments in the South China Sea. U.S. involving Georgia means conflicts with nuclear goals to 9. Russia will incite the right to revamp nuclear try to get to aggressor countries and after the combination of Russia ultimate religious sphere of influence and national sovereignty first strike nuclear arms against the original and aggressive shit or ultimate future will have to consider themselves as prime target for nuclear attack over Russia the third church of first strike use of nuclear arms extinction of Boston 2. The nuclear war was a possibility of subject probably consequence of all the qualifies global term nuclear Armageddon and annihilate or species Russian use of the U.S. retain arsenal could be used and any small nuclear down in extensions to not destroy humankind and use of all makes conflict over time and go nuclear and destroy U.S.-China relation glacier and shit, where is it? 11. Process of avoiding intensive ability competition may approach in the U.S. foreign policy. China will use enforceability build has been dedicated for when a crisis could easily escalate nuclear was each step along the way will esteem irrational. The United States could find self under pressure to temper and have a crisis can only the United States. It's all been following events rather than believing on term versus responsibility make it more willing to say that common car China's modernizing nuclear modernization might remove the check on Chinese action could feel the U.S. attempt for its ability to defend upon could feel convention nuclear arms race.
I stock market.
Yeah.
Okay. Stats the critique.
It's conditional.
Okay, I'm a little confused about how any of your turns really apply to the app. Your disease turn says we cause disease because people are mad at us. There's blowback. Iran says there's blowback. Hedge says they're afraid of the U.S., so they proliferation says they're afraid of the U.S., so they proliferate. All of those seem to be turns that the app solves because the way the app access hegemony was not by increasing our huge military force, but by making that military force seem more benign and less frightening. So why are these not all add-ons for the apps and region Y is good?
All of our evidence doesn't. Yes, it does talk about some threatening, but they said they feel threatened because the United States is the lone superpower.
Exactly. Okay. So next thing, you made the argument that retrenchment is key to solve all these conflicts. Where have you read a piece of evidence that absent the U.S. being a legitimate superpower, we would retrench? Because like we have like security agreements with like China, those probably aren't going away, or not China, sorry, Taiwan. Taiwan, you know, with like South Korea, those probably aren't going away anytime soon. We have like tons of military forces globally, those aren't going to go away soon. We never made a claim those would go away absent the plan. We just made a claim that those would become ineffective because of blowback. So again, I want you to explain why any of these terms are not add-ons for the app.
Are you talking about just
Every term you have read is about blowback and.
I
Well,
don't
okay.
think
I guess I have
that's
two
true.
questions. One, which ones are not about blowback?
I
Which ones
think
are-
all of them are not about blowback. I think all of them are different scenarios for why people backlash against the U.S.
That is what blowback is.
That's
Two,
not
I want to
necessarily
talk.
what
Okay,
blowback
well
is.
that is what it means. Two
I think we
is
can
I
get
want to
into
talk
debates about specific
what,
scenarios
why,
as we go
what
on.
evidence do you have that the U.S.
grouping them.
retrenches absent the plan? That the U.S. would voluntarily withdraw its military forces in China, as per your or in like the Asia region, as per your China scenario, in the Middle East.
Sustainability debate.
So that's the other thing, unsustainability debate. Does that mean if we concede hedge is unsustainable, none of this is offense?
Hedge is unsustainable in the status quo. That gives uniqueness to.
Why does
all
well no
arguments.
you've isolated reasons such as economics.
If hedge is unsustainable in the status quo, your plan increases and/or sustains hedge. All of our hedge
Not
bad
if
offense is
you read
offense.
warrants why it's unsustainable, they're different than the plan. Let's talk about the critique impact. So your argument about why it kills value to life is because we always seek an extrinsic source of happiness. Why then should the judge vote for you? Since that's an extrinsic source of happiness, wouldn't that be killing your value to life? Since you're seeking the ballot.
necessarily.
Well,
That's
no,
a
I
weird
think necessarily
question.
that card's like you should not seek happiness from other sources.
The reason why debate's extrinsic is because of our focus on statistical confirmation. Our focus
No, I'm
on
asking about the ballot. That might be another
it's
form
not
of
about
extra-
getting the ballot, it's about how you get the ballot.
Well,
when
no,
you
no.
get the ballot because of you win a certain
I-
impact debate, you get a ballot.
I understand
because
I understand you're trying to spin this link differently, but I'm asking.
I'm not
asking
spinning
about
the
your
link
links.
differently.
I'm
That's what
asking
the
about
card
the fact
says.
that you saying that the judge should vote for you links to your impact. Much
We're
more.
saying that you should vote for us because we changed the way we
Because
approach
that provides an
debates.
extrinsic happiness. We'll take that.
So, it's not that. Here's case next.
Subsequent technology people arrest world equality and during not-a-possible simultaneous and climate bad policies. U.S. Hedge fund now is an app card. There's Stratford evidence that there's backlash because U.S. force is supplied crudely and arbitrarily. That's why restrictions on force is key. The dollar to make dollar for Japanese Brazilian Christian investors are legal electoral like the dollar investment is the dollars for the Bible reserve the economy's flooding would look every the dollar wins. And it's large financial markets financial money and liberal rights with the stuff use of fundamentals right. Now the U.S. signed no conflict their wars now they consider Whibley evidence indicates that drones making it the only model solves that U.S. military superiority ensure peaceful Chinese rise. Princess said neither to the China nation should increase power to limit some policy increase Chinese for the Asian security political affairs the use of words which I maintain strong use of the foreign force and expected from China after the use of force against wide use military supporting of the regions and people are running to get the China make this letting you more effective now. No disease extinction poster 5 months in the United States of 200,000 deaths let the ability how they fear to do their world like these for the direct kill the poster will the pandemic cause extinction cross nation was severe and there is no internally countries would never cooperate because they know they don't want to get second. We have the best technology now. The Iran only the U.S. solves Brooks 8 only run down cyber race Iran red makes include Russian made special military such a power the United States if you the state power protection operation for long no Middle East war gas level multiple right absolutely never off the use of the power GP dominates the active player makes a little bit of Iran are said to use Germany regime consider balancing over person the state issues also neighbors for seek out U.S. help market U.S. help proliferation erosion of U.S. Germany constant posted 97% I think we're something equal to the even competition Roger Steve including the test by using nuclear states see what's actually the simply able to be better than neighbors need to be better the problem emergent hypothesis because cause of war there like the war market war no impact damage 10% to war marching brought on the simply related to the place of the wide impacts of the influence basis limited direct crisis but they intend to what's in the class that we're governing activate expert for the general liberation until the labs chain reaction will occur mark occur small arsenals are stable saying 90 arsenals are small energy the main small arsenal the beginning arsenal life probably all small people that see holiday people got like mission probably the absolute launches mark and launches terrorism Germany collapse causes terrorism and proliferate our bombs something collapse the political so the rest of the poverty and blood of the world understanding the club probably need to watch me use increase the terrorist increase against social media Middle East Africa will use terrorist collapse to rival the terrorist back into the rights major capitalist world now these self-defeating armament Monteiro has presented by domestic factors not U.S. power explains recent conflicts must be brought responding to the experience omnipresent media massive factors after U.S. power alone explain recent conflicts Monteiro concludes the alternatives fail and leads to miscalculation unipolarity is still the best solution Monteiro will so the rival and one of these features simply conflict imbalance of power more likely to generate predatory conflicts we saw the impact because we prevent the executive from overstretching him or herself now lack of norms causes Chinese drone aggression and maritime disputes that increases tensions grimly 13 drones will bring additional install the actual fierce and Chinese and military years old and some crimes and massive justice journalists have the encouraged regulation of the management operated perfectly speed of miscalculation how to power from use of the great powers mind advanced reach feature and recently all this overlapping helmet military the competition and so the military and only get worse because of lack of well shop and work training as UAV incurred the recently provocative Japan is the interaction between now towards seriously the Chinese Japan Korea Taiwan Vietnam planning UAV factor which is personal ability to manage these region demonstrating to the continents elsewhere nothing for the opposite region to our main domain government solution for the domain to international norms will send to the which to draw the capitalism of the most gain toward the world in the absence of political leadership these could lead the region into war now Monteiro votes out will for 12 people leaders with the most people ever community and plan the national to the yes or great powers Monteiro tried the fails you said the rally company restrict for 999 so Lisa that the war would mention with also mention believe the most peaceful period market peaceful period no George will impact Schwarzwag 11 official release from the national foreign policy macro the corporate parts of the south impression the political market the world of nowhere Russia Peter Mark Lucian and Julie Close on that which many war spreading at least over a sense of the war we wouldn't get drawn in Georgia we don't have any troops there transition causes make the war spend 76 in the United States give the property radiation more Canada by the right to something versus competition something great but decides the competition or market competition conceded shaping of international norms lack of restrictions green lights violent unilateral interaction less swiftly independently cause great power words Roberts poster and Boyle now the K
can you maybe read the Brooks
yeah
or the Pakistan add-on
I'll just read the decline causes lash out Goldstein some peaceful the honesty can't live government word shift intelligence mentally works power to make the adjustment nothing short of 70% would force me to work on market wars to find average preserve order mark and order now the case similarly plan passageway the consequences versus the alternative scheme absolutely self fairness same with the want to see make it possible to be out now our role in the ballot encompasses negatives voting affirms the most persuasive portion action in the debate in relation to the topic we are not a narrow and singular endorsement of only statistics it's just one tool and our many tools for persuasion presentation which means we do not say stealing after being moving target permutation. Do both. The permutation recognizes both intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. The value, yes, is an intrinsic way, an extrinsic way, but we intrinsically just enjoy the space value life is some inevitable and subjective source into the divided life system, the determination made the person something like that, something like the person making the operative decisions or the things their lives are worth or not now. Simulated national security law debates preserve agency, enhances decision making, avoids co-option. That's the first piece of Donahue evidence across the nation proves that engaging in this debate specifically is key to challenge broader structures, prefer specificity. Simulation about war powers is uniquely empowering. Donahue 13 recommendation must be engaged in the action with information versus it can't make having the engagement factor still not possible with activity from somebody and accumulate from somebody how over slightly prices is the law of the legal system for the leader guys process are the test conclusion and analyze information completely is over high entry building capacity engagement critical market critical thought now rejection of accelerating simulation is causes scapegoating and authoritarianism shit Smith and Ford theories not exploding with the possibility speed of possibility go to the beneath it is the tell a lot of lights so the world have to display down something involved with church escape the house responsible their happiness life and happy real and slave friends down kind of ways the real trying to policy and simply the policies of speed market speed now our method is good these are all dissets the alternative debating a specific policy solves decision making still sign for clearly 13 of the points is debating the release of four properties something we something making the operator identification question answer contribution of the part section the debate enables substantive issue facility effective decision making understanding result in adverse deliberation and more decisions market decision now the right feels in global seven suggestible terms for rejected gender embrace multiplicity of planet multiple options of given words operating resignation of lobbying asymptomatic older percentages of the groups and running traditional legal strategy both their causes market and the market causes executive powers increase because the perceived public indifference and lack of comprehension about security issues ran into while these urges security rich and greater not less suggested growth of security political change ideas for conflict problems judgment about lotus mass liberation all destructive shared practices has recast war to conflict ordinary marriage trauma had to get portrait installation and the best of that makes sense of company info other branches of the public legitimacy of the challenge government programs method focused causes for us and it doesn't come first Jackson led falsification transform and less more about NC foundation something focus something with complex and situation resulting solving velocity makes out evaluate research for purpose makes the required elements system history much closer positive something we strong knowledge figure out I get this foundation before concentrating on the world no prior questions conquer 99 relative sensitivity for person the aspect of the host for this working people to the world with the present climate it was one of the important question had to bounce out for with the meta questions to be answered market answer we they link to the status quo but what we saw because the government right now does not we force the government to internalize the cost of drones right now the government only sees the cost of drones as the cost of building it we force them to acknowledge civilian casualties.
I'll take some prep. And can you mark all your cards while we're taking prep, please, and upload that?
Of course. I wrote down all the marks. So I don't know
Are the cards?
Hey, I mean, if you want, we can like pause everything until I do this.
Yeah, this is pretty important because you marked a lot of cards really early.
That's fine. Yeah. Do you want me to also delete every card right now?
We got the cards that you read. We just want to know where you stopped reading the ones you read.
shaman card, by the way, she read the big text.
Okay.
It's like you can kind of tell where. Last one.
What are you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at the files to see which ones are marked. I just closed out of it. Let me know when it's re-uploaded. Let's see how the stream's doing.
Perfect. It should be uploading right now. And it's saved as Tracy with marks.
Okay.
Great. Okay.
Alright, I guess we'll start up at the top. You indicate, reading this piece of evidence says that hegemony has structural advantages that keeps it sustainable. What are these actual, I guess, structural advantages that it has?
Well, so one example is counterbalancing, which is the warrant that a lot of hegemony bad authors use. The argument of one of these structural factors is that counterbalancing never happens because, for example, countries don't want to put in the effort to backlash against the United States, or they'll just say, "Oh, you can do it," like to China, and won't actually bandwagon against the United States. So that is an example of a structural factor. That means that there won't be as much backlash or unsustainability against the United States as there otherwise would have been.
So like economics, we have like a
Yeah.
huge economy, most powerful military in the world.
So economics and military.
I mean, those are some examples.
These are indicators. For example, it indicates the United States. Well, this specific warrant on the card is balancing, right? So backlash against the United States is not only unsustainable, it is counterproductive for countries. It sucks up capital, technology, and people, which means that countries don't have an incentive to counterbalance or backlash permanently. So, for example, even in situations in which the United States, let's say, incited backlash, like the United States has deployments in Asia, which, well, first of all, the plan doesn't affect.
All right.
But countries don't have an incentive to structurally maintain that balancing or modernization against the United States because it takes up
Can I ask
massive
you a different
capital and
question? You've been
detracts
talking
from
for a
their
minute and a
governments.
half.
I'm sorry?
Can I ask another question? You've been talking for a minute.
Yeah, for sure.
Alright, so we'll move on to the Christensen 2009 evidence that indicates that United States military superiority is encouraging China to rise peacefully. Where does it even talk about China rise at all?
A strong U.S. presence in Asian security and political affairs will discourage the use of coercion by China. By maintaining a strong U.S. security presence in the form of U.S. bases, the United States makes it difficult for China to advocate the use of force against Taiwan. U.S. military superiority in the region is an integral part of that broader engagement strategy that makes diplomatic engagement more effective, which means it not only makes a hard power deterrence argument, but a hard power helps stop power argument, that other countries can't backlash against the United States, even in terms of, for example, we can have more effective diplomacy with them when it's backed by hard power. So it makes sort of a twofold argument there.
Alright, I'm going to kind of move back to using some of the analysis that you're using cross-examination, if that's okay, of me. Is that cool? DNA?
I'm sorry.
Some of your arguments from the 1AC, according to you guys, indicates that you guys are able to solve backlash, right? That's what you're trying to do?
Well,
A lot of your evidence from this speech is indicating that we need to have a type of unipolarity and forward presence to be able to solve a lot of the impacts.
And our
it says that U.S. military presence is a guarantor of security, right? The plan doesn't affect broader deployments, which is not only a no link, but an impactor.
yeah, like we don't think your impact terms apply. If they did, impact turning back. Yeah.
it'll be the K. The overview that they had on hedge debate, and then the very bottom of the hedge debate, which is the war stuff.
Does the overview stuff include the sustainability stuff or just
Sorry, sustainability stuff right after the overview too. I'll just tell you when I skip down way to the bottom. Do I trust this?
I can trust you.
You trusted it?
Didn't fail.
Didn't fail you?
No. I don't know. That's enough for you to do that. That's expensive.
Oh, actually, I can put it here. So many cables. Alright. Let's curve this a little bit more. I'm putting the power. Trying to make a stable podium right here.
I believe in
If
you.
you want, you can use this.
That doesn't really help much. It's the table more
That's fair.
than the tubs. I think the tubs are pretty structurally sound. Alright.
do you need to change this thing?
Is the camera looking at me? Probably is.
Camera.
It sees me, it sees me.
Cameras are always on
Can I borrow you? I can't find mine. It's somewhere over here, but
at the timer. Okay.
yeah. Alright, we ready? Critique, we're not going for it, but they haven't really answered the thesis of the critique, which is based on how you should frame the debate. You should look at you should look at lower level understandings of how the world works because those superior to statistical means. Oh, there's my timer. Those are superior statistical means, meaning that this is a pretty big framing issue on the hegemony advantage. You should prefer evidence that's more descriptive of how social complexes work and how society itself is rejecting hegemony rather than how hegemony has been successful. Because wars might have decreased on a higher level. I don't think we really need to answer anything else on this. They haven't really. They can see that simulation is good. We're saying the simulation is better if you focus on these social metrics. They say vague alts are a voting issue, but one D also vague pretty specific action of rejecting the YC. Two justifies perm to the alternative, not a reason but negative. Three vague alts are necessary for negative flexibility because it allows us to decide the direction of for reject the argument, not to see go to the hegemony date. One, look at their speech. One, another framing issue. Look at their speech closely. A lot of their evidence marked before it gets the argument only reads about one line restating the attack. They haven't actually made arguments on many portions of the debate, which Matt will specifically talk about, meaning that you prefer analysis. It also proves that they're only focused on creating more numbers in the debate rather than going into the intricacies of their evidence, meaning that their scholarship itself is vacuous, and the reason why you vote negative not because it's their firms for not persuasive. Two, look at lower level understandings of the world. There's yang and qi evidence, and all their other authors include that hedges are inevitably stable. Hedges either inevitably unstable because data points in a certain direction, or statistics turns in different directions. The third way you should look at the debate is ask the question: what is war and conflict? A lot of their evidence talks about whether or not the U.S. is involved in wars, but doesn't really discuss increasing tensions between Taiwan and China or increasing tensions in the Middle East. They just say because the U.S. is there, everything's all good. But in reality, people are being oppressed by governments, which is why and finding the U.S. as someone they should blame, therefore leading to this backlash. This is a better internal link because it looks at lower level. Before they say the executive now will lash out, but no lash out or power vacuum. The U.S. will slowly retreat. McDonald Parent and life returns to its most common response to decline. The faster the state falls, more likely renounce its risky commitments and increase reliance on other states, cut military spending, and avoids starting escalating international disputes compared to the average great powers. They're 26% less likely to initiate interstate dispute, 25% less likely to be embroiled in a dispute, and market less likely to escalate to those higher dispute levels. We are likely to see retrenchment in U.S. foreign policy. Any potential U.S. China power transition was likely easier than pessimists have advertised. Some regional allies, foremost India and Japan, appear capable of assuming responsibility to great powers may not be prudent, but tend to become their power abs. Any alternative to Germany's regional cooperation not work was on. In 11, there's no alternative to balance against the U.S. or bandwagon to it. Others use diminished power of the U.S. as reason to carry their own pathways in regional politics. Continue U.S. leadership's neither necessary nor desirable to keep the world order from falling apart into 1930s style imperial competition. I reject the neo-realist assumption that the major powers of the day will necessarily fall into competition. The other underpinnings of such a regionalized world in order for coexistence in international society with some elements of cooperation. The world with only greater powers is likely to take more regionalized form, and this might work well. You can see this specifically with the EU and their ability to maintain stability in Europe through sanctions, even though their economy is not doing well. The solidarity of the EU proves that the U.S. presence is not really necessary in that region, and the regionalism is coming now. Five, their own evidence concludes negative. It states in the underlying part statistics happen because of the nuclear deterrent, which isn't going away anytime soon, or not going away. The status quo means the status quo solves the reasons why we go to great power wars. 5. The arguments, they say no link, but all of our arguments link because the reasons why, there are affirmative reasons why drone policy sustains the U.S. and Germany, gives us the data necessary to have commitments abroad. Even if the affirmative might be a reduction of where the U.S. goes, their data creates justifications for going to these wars and creates an incentive to go to those areas. They say statistics are good and they're also historical, but all this is just re-description statistics. Even if their statistics are true, historical understandings don't really make sense in the context of this debate, because political climate has changed. The political climate has changed drastically from the 1930s and even the 1970s to the 2008. A lot of their evidence seems to completely forget the 2008 collapse, and material factors are relevant. Social factors make U.S. powers unsustainable. Goes down to 11. A concentration power board actually serves the ideas and balance that are other sources for legitimacy. This would arise from any power, but it also connects back to the U.S. legitimacy deficit, which Bush aspirated to rise to non-Western powers, such as India and China, will likely increase resistance in America and Germany, even when there is no rising power as an ability to force the anti-hegemonic communities. Clear understanding of the U.S.'s role, superpowers fragile. This is more based on social factors than material ones. It depends on the U.S. superpower status on both ways and willingness of others to follow, and the willingness of U.S. citizens to support it have been masked by thinking put too much emphasis on material capabilities. Until 2008 economic crisis caused even that massive slip, and they say we'll inevitably cling to hegemony. Or actually, no. They say conditionality is bad. This is a pretty nefarious way of framing the conditionality debate, where they're hiding it in certain portions of the debate and hoping that we drop it. This folks' debates on answering some ballot means they're just trying to get the ballot. It's also a voting issue because it's trying to it's focusing the debate away. It's sandbagging their offense and hoping that we drop it. This creates an unfair burden for the negative to answer. Also, conditionality is good. It leads to better 2AC decision making because they have to strategically choose which parts of the affirmative to defend this better education, because it leads to them critically think about what parts of the 1AC are strategic. 2, it's keeping that flexibility and discussion allows us to present more issues in debate without the cost of contradictions. More fair, and this is more fair from the negative to the 3. But it leads to the best policy option for the affirmative speaks for less persuades them. 2AR outweighs. We have to pick certain arguments in the 2AR, which makes it much more difficult on the negative. It's not a possibility. Yeah, 5 reasonability. You can define hedge goodness. Our arguments weren't really contradictory. You don't have to say turns inevitable, but all of our offense is unique to U.S. will embrace retrenchment now, but embracing the ideology of Japanese and alibi to maintain primacy. Lane and 12. Obama's new defense strategic guides. The first step. The U.S. is facing a power shift, which compels rethinking the U.S. The unipolar movement will be replaced by a multipolar system. The DSG is the first move, and strategic retrenchment will push offshore balancing. Jump to policy making the Navy joint staff showed interest. Still, there is an uneasy tension between recognition states that will impinge on the strategic posture and assertion of America. America's role must remain undiminished in foreign policy establishments and reluctance. They go to the sustainability debate. I think I covered most of it at the top, but I can find where I'm talking about it. Extend our lane and spreads. Few reasons why hegemony is unsustainable. One, because the dollar collapse is happening. Two, because social factors push against hedge decline. Prefer social factors because the U.S. public is the one who decides whether or not who's in power, and if they choose someone that's more likely to advocate the retrenchment, that means that controls whether or not policymakers decide who the social factors elect in leaders that choose whether or not hegemony continues, meaning that social factors make hegemony unstable. Also, their concession of our Stratford evidence description as a correct description is pretty devastating for them, because Stratford evidence talks about other factors like Chinese resentment and Chinese votes of no confidence. China's looking to get past to change the petrodollar. Petrodollar means that the U.S. will not longer be used as a standard of currency. A lot of this sustainability debate doesn't really. If they win that hedge is sustainable, they don't really have uniqueness for their affirmative, because it will be sustained in the status quo. I mean, there's no reason to sustain it in the future. They've considered a few parts of the debate. I think I've covered it in the overview on accident. Don't really need to go much more. I'll start the war debate, but I don't think I'll get too far into it. Hedge makes war inevitable. Now is key. Hegemony is unstable. Trying to maintain power only makes the system work. Its DA is linear. Matt, prep. Yeah, it's in the 2NC file. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Your illegitimacy piece of evidence that says social well, I guess we'll call it illegitimate too. Well, actually not, because it helps us. It says social factors make U.S. hegemony unsustainable. The factors that it cites are acceptability of policies, attractiveness as a model, illegitimacy in the international society. The plan creates accountability for drones. We create an attractive model via international norms, and we increase legitimacy by holding the United States government accountable. Why don't we solve these structural factors? I believe it's the end of the card.
It's actually about the war on terror, interestingly enough.
Yeah.
Sure. Because it also talks about other factors besides drones. It talks about where the public backlash is because of military presence abroad, because of our spending in areas that seem superfluous, etc. Which is external to drone presence.
Okay.
Drone presence is not presence of U.S. boots on the ground, not presence of U.S. boots in Germany.
I get that, but how does the plan net increase U.S. public backlash against, say, boots on the ground in Afghanistan?
It net increases because the justification for having drone policies is to get data in order to defend.
Drones.
What?
We don't increase drones.
You say that you want to sustain them in the status quo by making them more credible.
No, the F decreases drones.
Okay.
The F says that you can sue if you are a victim of a drone strike. That doesn't necessarily increase or decrease drone policy, and it probably makes it more legitimate. The idea is you're trying to make the U.S. more credible.
Okay. You make an argument at the bottom. Your extension of your Stratford evidence talks about China. You make a reference to the petrodollar. U.S. creates a cause of action that allows people to sue the government for drone strikes. How does this cause China war or shift to a petrodollar? Walk me through the internal link chain.
Again, it's what you've claimed in your 2AC, that you sustain hegemony that was collapsing in the status quo. I think you're trying to get it to such a high-level understanding of how the impacts work. You're trying to say, oh, we're just changing the way drones work and drones backlash, but then you're reading a few pieces of evidence like Zing and Xi and other pieces of evidence about maintaining U.S. presence abroad and maintaining U.S. sustainability abroad because the U.S. is more credible. We're saying maintaining U.S. credibility is bad.
On the question of quote-unquote higher-level understanding, you make a scholarship argument about low-level conflicts and how that should be the filter for how we evaluate statistics.
No, I made a scholarship argument about low-level understanding. This might be confusing because it's more a computing term, but high-level understanding is like the big picture, where low-level is the details of the program or the details of your simulation.
Okay, what details have you justified your scholarship with?
We've justified our scholarship with public backlash reasons.
That is
like
a pretty big picture.
Broad level thing that can't be measured in detail.
Surveys.
How do you measure? So surveys are not low level.
Low level backlash against the U.S. in certain countries.
Wait, so can I be clear? The impact is that hedge makes people sad?
No, the impact is that hedge causes conflicts, though Matt's taking most of that.
I'm going to go up the train. I'll be very clear when I go up.
Whoa, yeah, I don't need that.
It's on the website.
I love these tables.
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry. Alright, do you both have it?
Hedge makes war and now is key. Hedge makes on the same, trying to maintain power limiting system wars. DS later, long way, higher probability war. Transfers now is key. You don't put it the risk of war. Well, hyperdynamics, dimension, belief systems, regulation, but taking personal, you don't post before times more the war, than the multiple, all certain projected impact evidence because the last quantity methodology, Montier 20. You know, what's most common from both systems according to the percentage year by an incident of war involving air and multiple 18% year, or upward unipolarity 59% is by far the highest in our period of multipolarity. The probability of war involving air the breakout was 4% of the unipolarity. It's at least 18 and 4 times higher. These figures I know what's evidence unipolarity is, and they can see the eternal nature term. And the amount of your evidence, the hedge may self being minor parts are inevitable when the rise of and makes this transition unstable and unipolarity comes policy because they can't access any account later 11. The stable blue strike policy here, they pursue inappropriate policies to decide to increase security, but turn out to be costly have a high probability of backfiring. The question is whether interesting next in my mind. Do you unipolarity to certify the answers? No, they're mostly concerning the mark saying free, or it's something that unipolarity increases security even though limited benefits and the unipolar version still have issues of policy wisely, and this is linked to the long way to sustain unipolarity. The worst case, the transition of multipolarity and for judgment now is key to avoid wars, and the statistical our evidence looks at holistic history, looks at wars directly involved by the United States as well as the Montier, and on the transition war framing issues, trying to divert transfer the size what makes war inevitable. There is only person we can decrease conflict through multiplayer judgment doesn't cause conflict or showing other states are wrong, but down 11 this is true where probably returns this out taking a war direction with under cooperation making questions the evidence the pessimist article to play back from systematically examination between the photographer piece of the most time area powers facing decline, or let's say initiate or escalate disputes to great powers over array the infrastructure to another being the aggression or vice predation no transit wars from down 11 from arguing chaos resulting from infrastructure great power is a skill but they're get negative power about this better for reduction use forward to modify use of average limited pressure and occurs allies and the elected infrastructure and the use of international instability on China war debate. They still war level according to the one. You see this stuff, evidence isn't all like just as drone. First, it's a chance of conflict. It's not that with them they're on an level. This is subsidy use of general evidence is more large scale. They're playing 12 indicates that the common competition or supremacy will cause a conflict of flashpoints across Asia, including the Korean Peninsula, Taiwan, and the enable area. This evidence is only taking their evidence was only taking about diplomacy and Taiwan diplomacy is a small part of Germany. It feels like they are imposing the democracy onto countries. Also internal links here to a few other arguments through this, including the Korean Peninsula, the United States trying to war out ways that would escalate to include the entirety of Asia. China will use to do weapons. Ricardo did work on this at the top of the debate. U.S. Germany will guarantee U.S. and combo of flashpoints across Asia lane as well. The United States and China are not competing for opportunity. Asia that conflict fueling against attention utility to war great to react. So now we have shown up the same region. Or the main disadvantage to highly probability. Actually, I already read that evidence. And extension straight times indicates that even if it was a peaceful competition, it was in world other countries that will become that even if it was a peaceful competition in world other countries far and wide that will become conflict. So even if they can solve China, they won't solve the other countries that will try and become involved to stop the problem. Not the disease. Even if we don't get extinction, we get a large unconditional link to impact. They only read that it doesn't lead to extinction. Unipolarity causes these systems of coordination fail. Unipolar will work on the boat. American evolved because we're seeing as paternalistic time of bacteria reproduce at less than 30 seconds because dangerous faster than anything else. So only multipolarity solves the only way to prevent diseases do intervene in high risk areas, cycle policy make that impossible. Regionalization makes the coordination still definitely causes extreme impact. Does in apply carbon in 2012 disease all around us under ordinary condition and condition, or in always ordinary pathogen can spill over to people from animals. SARS could have been much more highly effective preceding symptoms move through airports and influence our world adapt or airborne prevention. Transmission of transitions across that separates localized disease from global pandemic. No other climate to wait up on the planet like we do. We are out with an outbreak, and our outbreaks. So even if we haven't seen extinction from disease yet, it doesn't mean that we can't. Or evidence about utilize science. There's always possibility they can escalate from mass death to extinction disease, at least to extinction of the rate from the 1A. And see, so far we're doing well. However, the rate of disease is winning, human race is losing. How we're coming back. General diseases that claim to extinction according to Nobel Prize winner. I don't remember his name.
Answer that they don't change the way cooperation works.
They say they don't change how cooperation works. However, our evidence is indicted in indicating that the aspect of the United States promising being in other countries prevents us from being intercorrelated. So, and by actually, Ricardo,
Other countries refuse.
Yeah, other
help.
countries refuse help. Is the argument answer to that.
If this was true, we would have eradicated disease in Africa long
Yeah, if
ago.
this is true, it eradicated diseases. On to pro-love.
Hedge funds, pro-love countries proceed for United States pursue about the military challenges. Other only option would be hard nuclear weapons. And always more countries will be nuclear weapons, high risk of extinction. All takes one instance for countries to launch their for helmet and use of pressure engineering and same from hesibility and government. The feasibility of proliferity also cites a linear of studies to analyze motive response and political causal exchange of defenses and apply for an eye. Seaward between NWS and some years as also option to obviously make not only from the hybrids as I know that he's already motor system from the last time they have been bad habits so far looks so good. Others should try to one rationally concerned nuclear conflagration in terms of stable. The extremely bad thing is that the end of human species they say had decreased the proliferation of this evidence. That evidence is we have to have a disappearance from the United States. We don't say no more United States. They just we just say not U.S. nuclear flare. There still can be multi-flare. Opposed to extinction helmet is a single failure could cause even if there are safe ways. There's always a chance of problems with the evidence I just read. Also said and on to terrorism. Terrorism hate us more than they hate us. They hate us more and they hate us because of our presence and use as a reason to fund its land use primacy of extremism. Cause exchange terrorism goes nuclear attack and inevitable sexual risk. This is because multilateral institutions create conflict better because they are more managed. 9/11% hedge empirically increases the risk of terror. Further turns more probable when we have empirical evidence on our side. Their evidence that they are able to solve terrorism isn't very specific in indicating that drones again, this evidence is indicating we have to have a disappearance of the United States hegemony, not saying that we can't have
Also,
multipolarity.
Their AFCOL, it doesn't solve this because if terrorists probably wouldn't take actions to sue the U.S. if they were
wouldn't take action
victims
to
of
sue the
genocide.
United
They
States
use
if
it
they
to
were
build
upset.
up.
They need to move on to Iran.
Just kick it. No Middle East war.
Okay.
Yeah.
Going back to Iran, no Middle East war. Send
Let's
that
do
through.
that.
Iran meeting. Yeah.
How much time do we have?
5:15.
Just is going to be the critique and then hedge.
No particular order on hedge.
So hedge is kind of just like some big macro level framing stuff, then answering the whole conditionality thing, then
I'll just follow along.
sorry, yeah, it's mostly 2 and C and then 1 and R, like mostly that order. I mean, there's just going to be some stuff that like we throw in extra.
Sorry,
Yeah.
before the round I was
Well-
like, Evan, let's make this as hard as possible.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Okay. Statistics are the preferable way to making decision, and our turnaround statistics data is beautiful. It's the only way to have an accurate vision. Otherwise people inevitably devolve to gut checks and just what they think is right as opposed to what's actually right. Looking at what society wants is awful. You shouldn't say, look at what's overall good for society. If you look at what society wants necessarily, that results in bad policy. For example, people in Arizona think that they don't want immigration, therefore we don't pass some second immigration reform, even though the statistics show that it's good for everyone. That's a perfect example of why you should look at overall statistics. Ignoring evidence allows the religious right to take over, results in the worst policies. Harrison, for world is coming to activism men, women who say the future of our students and police, that start elementary school education, Palestine, Balkans, Iran, Kashmir, Sudan, Nigeria, Ethiopia, and British, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Caucasus, really, case more religious, which calls little moments as well as the second more ceasefire history reveals any kind of truth is that insufficient taste for evidence regularly result in the worst sense of adverse and thus especially you have to find a recipe or the fall of civilization market civilization they do not have any reason for either evidence on the case except for random just add how much taxes are, which is not very convincing. Now go to the case at the top 2 macro level framing issues. First is game over because they can see the drone norms impact, which is external from necessarily the generic hedge impacts of Roberts and Boyle and syndicates that absent U.S. norms drone use will spread unfair globally. Our syndicates that causes miscalculation because nuclear deterrence doesn't apply. Nations will engage in flyover missions that cause miscalculation escalates to nuclear war conceded extinction impact. They have no turns to, which means it's game over. Second is that none of their turns apply. The AF does not increase U.S. military capabilities, and failure to do the AF does not cause us to retrench or get rid of our forces globally, which is what the internal link to all of the evidence about the AF only increases the legitimacy of our force, which our indicates was the only way to make hegemony effective, and is the way that we solve the internal link to all their impacts. Is all their impact turns are about lack of use of hegemony, archaic and shaman efforts are conceded, and the U.S. will never have forces globally. Will never want to power check because it's part of the America. It's part of this is part of the way people view American identity. We have empirically not lasted a few more years without intervening globally, which means they cannot win. They cannot win a uniqueness for any of their turns. How their argument about how we increase data is bullshit. That's not what the app does. The app increases legitimacy by decreasing drone use. Now our scholarship is good. Yes, Linda, or some of the cards early, but the reason, but the punishment for that should just be that you don't consider the parts of the card that we didn't read. Just because we're marking cards early was for strategic reasons, and because we believe that it was more important for us to lay out arguments with different warrants and read different cards to make that. But it's not a reason to reject the team at all. That is nonsensical. Now, conditionality, you should reject the team. Multiple worlds destroys the stable advocacy, destroying argument responsibility because the negative is always a moving target. Contradictions make the 2AC and effective decision making impossible. Proven how they kick the alternative, but still use the K links on the case forces. The after to bear yourself. No offense, a hard 2AC is inevitable. Only a question makes it impossible. The 2AC gets to put conditionality. Where if you went at worst, that's just the reason why we were confusing, etc. Incentivizes better, negative, flowing, and strategic. Yes, we want to win, but so do they. It is definitely not a reason to vote us down. Now, hegemony is good, not just for the US, but for everyone. You should look to our Burnett Evans on this question. We have seen a 99% decrease in conflict, and the threat of globalization and free trade from the US has lifted billions out of poverty, which means it's best for everyone on a macro level scale. And on a micro level scale, JNG and OM indicates that we spread deterrence as well, which means that people are less likely to go to conflict because there are tons of motivating factors for war. Our more indicates only having a strong state with strong deterrence is able to prevent those wars from escalating, which means absent the United States expected to deterrent war would decline. Their EU argument proves that hegemony is key because the only reason why the EU is stable is because the US is military. It's because the US is the one who can invest in the military for them. Also, framing issue we have not said the war is super low right now, which should frame all cause you to be very skeptical of all their feelings. I don't understand what his part about Owen concluding negative is about. Owen very clearly talks about how the US's overall power is the critical to spreading free trade and democracy. You should also reject his random ad homs of our evidence. It's not just historical US hegemony, it's about global stability. Now, Brooks and 13 indication of subordination or environment. US presence gives 11% pocket actions, lines from sort of extension absent America, regional forces, nation, moderation, political health, and full scope of Europe is one of the least insights for diplomacy. Station could see what's advanced real softness, virtue research, unwise states of preference for prestige empirical, sexual the case of attention with crisis, instability, market instability. Now, the sustainability debate first is all other cards go for us. There are social factors, evidence like the red and the one C, the 2 and C is talking about blowback to US primacy, which means that we ever saw that there was no dollar cops or currency. Evidence is comparative and says that we have American currency that everyone else are back. Evidence indicates we have economic and military might hedge is sustainable back to the 11 hedge. It's installed American power, so it's entrenching us from the great superpower with more dominant before economic ability institute
abuse and past after the United States going inside high level development, the U.S. military spending state around state or China. The U.S. one of the country power protecting globally dominant capabilities right, the United States to war the politicians stations to go to stop high and the world machine bring back home to go to power. The U.S. will elevation before Americans and some alliances, which means that our hard power is inevitable. Our hard power is inevitable. Just question whether or not it's effective. Question whether or not it's effective now. Montero's wrong. It's where Wolfsworth haven't said a consensus of researchers who disagree with Montero and indicate that he's only talking about Iraq, Afghanistan, macro Virginia, since common peace point. Montero concedes that the kind of alliances would cause power because of that's imbalances. Now, yes, transition wars are broke to Cheng and Chi, citing empirics and in the current system indicates there are multiple powers that the United States will decline. Would divide for power that causes war. Now, no China war there. Let's talk about military presence, which we have does. In fact, however, if we are legitimate, that means as well. It's more like if they conceded the add-on as well that we our norms are critical to stop drone overflights in South China Sea that cause a quick U.S. China nuclear war, which is specific Sarah Christensen. Indicates the legitimate United States can husband China, make sure that can husband China peacefully, international system, no disease. Their internal link is about paternalism. That's an after we solve for perceived paternalism from the United States. Also, it wouldn't cause extinction because of burnout. That's our positive evidence. No, there's a global pandemic. Really 12 actually was probably virus for 50 years. That's how big clear by total. That's where it's 176 Margaret under 176. The U.S. is better than that. Non-proliferation, re-trolling turn. The only reason U.S. nuclear umbrella means that people don't need to have proliferation, but they don't trust us because of things like drones. That's the only scenario which they would have proliferation. Also, our Gavin saying uncertainty indicates that states will build small arsenals, which will be uniquely stable, and it will be slow, which means there's no risk of walk or pull up. Now, terrorism, our top evidence is conceded. Collapse the United States just means terrorists would already attack us. Also, the app definitely net decreases terrorism because the only reason they're against us right now because our hostile military policies in Afghanistan and Iraq, which you have to definitely ameliorate somewhat. Here's more influence question partly and 12 people coming back into a policy maker being choose forcing policy accountability, owing to crossing policy maker accountability, making leaders of like engaging our appeal and targeting individual although accountability points holds. Let's improve your conduct like liking to force you to drone accountability points may be occurring after such even public impacts and although critical to ground increase force may continue to insulate cessation strikes to balance against consideration use Pakistan relationship market Pakistan relationship they not have any uniqueness for those terms or no link to the United States. The legitimacy is critical to effectiveness of strength for trade democracy.
It'll be the K, like hedge. Ups. Let's use them. Alright, let's see if this is actually recording audio. Sweet, it is. Okay. There is a conceited value like this. That's the way that they're deciding to debate and approach this debate. In a 1NC and 2NC, I extended the piece of McGonagall evidence that wasn't talked about. In 1ER. It's about how when we seek extrinsic rewards, we don't create happiness because we're always seeking that same extrinsic reward. But when we seek intrinsic rewards, we seek internal happiness. How we apply this to the debate is that when you're seeking extrinsic rewards, like finding the easiest way to win, by hiding theory arguments or marking cards, you make debate and activity about seeking the win instead of making debate, and activity about seeking discussions, meaning that debate eventually never leads to happiness and leads to empty lives. This impact's bigger. This impact's bigger than anything they're talking about in their simulation, because it's about how we make the debate community better. These practices that they're deciding to advocate and deciding to engage in when they're marking cards and putting conditionality somewhere where it absolutely makes no sense to put, because they're hoping that I drop it and hoping that I don't know how to flow, which this is college debate. I mean, come on. Seriously. When they're doing that, they're making debate worse. They're making debate focus on extrinsic wins, and they're focusing the debate on whether or not I answered something, whether or not I looked at a certain part of the game. They're trying to rig the game to make it impossible for me to win, or trying to rig the game to give themselves the biggest strategic advantage, rather than bringing in a discussion about whether or not we should have statistical analysis, or bringing in a discussion about whether or not hegemony is good or not. I know a lot of this impact framing is new, but this is bigger than their hegemony impacts, because it's about the community. If you vote affirmative, you're saying that it's okay to continue doing these practices and continue seeking these extrinsic wins. It makes debate empty, and makes debate not something that anyone wants to participate in, or not something that anyone wants to be a part of, because it doesn't really lead to us becoming better advocates or policymakers. These discussions themselves are what's necessary to understand issues and understand why the intricacies of drone policy might be good or bad, or why the intricacies of suing someone for drone policy might be good or bad. This was not answered in the 1ER. They only answered a justification for marking cards because it's strategic for them. We said that that type of strategic value is bad because it focuses on extrinsic rewards. I don't know what else is in this debate you can vote on, but this is a pretty easy way to vote negative. They're probably going to say that I'm also seeking extrinsic rewards because I'm seeking an easy win. Because they conceded it. I tried to engage in a pretty big discussion about it on the critique, and they decided to avoid it by leading to simulations. We're saying that you should stop these practices in order to make debate more intrinsic. You should read less cards, and you should put conditionality where it's supposed to go, and put conditionality where it makes sense, in order to have the debate focus on issues. Now, I was going to go for Germany bad and have Matt type all this out, but obviously I don't have enough time for that. So let's go to where they think they can probably win the debate, conditionality. If I can find where the heck I put conditionality. Here it is. They said that it's just a strategig positioning, but we're criticizing this type of strategy. We're criticizing this type of strategy in debate. They say that it leads to more stable advocacy and argument responsibility. Argument responsibility for whom? Argument responsibility for whom? We force the 2AC to defend specific parts of the 2AC, and that leads to better critical thinking. That's a key piece of evidence that isn't really answered. When they have to pick certain advantages that are more strategic against a certain counterpoint or the critique, they think about what's comparatively better. Also, they can see that it's necessary for negative flexibility and fairness, which is something you should prefer, because it's much more difficult. It's much more difficult to be negative when the affirmative gets to pick the topic of debate and the affirmative gets to speak last. The persuasiveness of the 2AR outweighs. The persuasiveness of the 2AR is a pretty big terminal defense argument that I don't think is really answered. The 1AR didn't really spend enough time impacting this conditionality debate in order to be something that outweighs the value of life arguments that we're making on about the debate community, or making about maybe trying to change the debate community and make it better. Any test of whether or not we're able to flow is trying to focus the debate on whether or not we're smart enough to even participate in the activity in the first place, which is a pretty offensive way to approach the debate. We're trying to change the practices in debate and make them better. The reason why we have issues of people trying to clip cards, mark cards, and etc., why there's so much confusion over paperless debates, because this practice is there in the first place, because there's always seems to be a need there always seems to be a need to read as many cards as possible when one or two is just enough. You vote negative because you think the debate community is going in the wrong direction. You think that they're representing this bad direction. The only reason to vote affirmative is because we might have made debate unfair, but they also concede a reasonability argument that you still got to read all of your great Japanese stuff. The critique was just a framing thing, which a lot of your answers applied to anyway, so it didn't really matter. The only other answer I can think of is that they'll say that simulation's good. We're not saying that simulation's bad. We're saying that your approach to simulation's bad. Our value life dissad and the McGonagall evidence is about your approach to how you simulate and how that leads to empty debates and leads to an activity that's something we don't want to participate in. Anything else?
They may say extinction outweighs.
They may say extinction outweighs, but you look at this impact as a higher level than extinction. This debate won't lead to us solving these issues or leading to U.S. hegemony increasing or declining. But this debate itself is seen and modeled, and these practices themselves determine our community. This ballot is about our community.
Sorry, how much time? 3 something? 254.
I'd rather go for that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure I did this I see. Oh, I know. I did the argument, but getting back to your question.
Yep.
This is great. Just gonna go straight down. Overview, extrinsicness, conditionality. Debate does not live or die by voting after neg. Voting after negative should endorse a world that lives or dies. And you can work past extinction in ways. It's a normatively good idea, which means that they can win the entirety of their arguments, but you should vote affirmative. The framing issue of the debate is that even if the affirmative links, the neg links just as hard. Even if the affirmative links 100%, voting negative does absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing will change in this debate round because you vote one way or another, which means that you should support the affirmative simulation and the normative endorsement of a cause of action that saves millions and millions of lives is a normally good idea. If you are uncomfortable with the new 2AR spin that has a reason to reject the new 2NR on face because the 2NR even conceded that all of his analysis is new, which justifies new 2AR answers, they should not introduce sandbagging into the debate because it justifies 2AR persuasion on this issue. Here are a couple of framing issues at the top. First of all, is the genuineness disadvantage. The ACE points are unverifiable. They conceded multiple theory arguments throughout the debate that it is you cannot say whether or not a team necessarily is genuine in their want to win or genuinely advocates want to see the base of point. The implication of this that leads to personal attacks is proven by the debate. They cannot call me or Evan out specifically for our practices or saying that we only want to do this to confuse them or mess them up. We are doing this because of strategic reasons that we would do to any team. So the affirmative is the only objective endorsement of a practice that incentivizes objective evaluation as opposed to personal attacks based on genuineness. Secondly, is that conditionality should be a tiebreaker in this issue. If it's true that theory should be the framing issue or filter how you should do the debate, or if it's true that theory outweighs nuclear war, then you should vote affirmative because the conditionality of their arguments not only A, some point proves that they have a strategic incentive to make their theory arguments as well, but B should be a tiebreaker that linked to this argument just as well, not the K at the top. There's no impact to their extrinsicness argument. If it's true that competitive incentives are bad and that wanting to win is bad, you should vote affirmative because to prove that voting negative does nothing or voting negative is not a reward for them. And then they also link to this just as hard. This leads to the genuine disadvantage. There's no unverifiability. Not only is this a disadvantage, but this is also a terminal solvency argument for any sort of alternative, which is voting negative. The only two internal links I will answer here. First is that we are making quote-unquote cheap shot theory arguments, i.e. conditionality. They conceded Evan's argument on conditionality that the 2EC gets to make the theory arguments wherever they want because it incentivizes flowing and forces the negative to pay attention. The basic point of this argument is that there's no objective way to determine what is the best place to put conditionality. I put conditionality there because I was making a point about contradictions on the case, which means that it was logically consistent, at least from the interpretation of the affirmative, which proves that there's no objective way to evaluate this. Now, secondly, I will answer their marking cards internally. Are you really seriously going to vote negative because you think that marking cards is an abusive practice? Obviously, people are not quitting debate, or debate is not living or dying because of the process of marking cards. They conceded Evan's argument that marking cards is solved by the fact that you don't read the rest of the cards that, or the part of the card that we marked at, and Evan can read it later. The impact of this is shorter cards, which obviously hurts the affirmative just as much. It's a strategic advantage, strategic disadvantage that goes both ways. They say it never leads to happiness. You cannot tell a person or a team or an individual whether or not they should be happy or how much happiness they get from the debate round. We saw their extrinsicness and intrinsic argument. This was the argument I made in the 2AC on the K that I get to resuscitate because they've conceded that voting affirmative solves both because it is an extrinsic award as well as acknowledges that all debaters in this debate have gotten some value from the activity. They do not solve the debate community because they do not make debate better. Now, they did not make better. Now, they haven't provided an alternative vision for what debate should look like. How fast is too fast? Can we ever mark cards at all? Should we maybe just not read cards? Should we just give you every speech doc 24 hours in advance? A lack of development of their so-called alternative means you should be very skeptical of voting aid because it's just likely it leads to a form of debate that is much less educational. The logical extension of their alternatives who would never try to be competitive. Competition is exactly what makes debate valuable. Our opponents push us to develop our arguments better, to practice and become more skilled because of competition. There's a built-in check, though. If teams ever become too competitive at the point of clipping, for example, judges will drop them. That's not what we did. We did the healthy level of competition, which brings me to the marking or clipping cards argument. They are not allowed to accuse Evan and I of clipping cards. We were not linked to this argument. We've been very deliberate about reading every single word. You can also verify this yourself, which means that voting negative does not provide the external verification. That is something that the status quo is able to solve for. They say we'll never become advocates or policymakers. They can see the evidence on the critique flow that the 1AC at least was a productive discussion, which means that they can win the entirety of the arguments. You should advocate voting out because we've introduced a public and productive discussion into this debate. His argument that reading less or reading more cards is bad proves our conditionality argument that you started the debate in the 1NC. The 1NC had more cards than the 1AC. Now the conditionality debate. He says argument of responsibility for who? We do not necessarily have to go for this as offense, but you should only evaluate this as offense if they win that theory is a voting issue. We will consider team on theory, which proves that you should vote to endorse the app as a normative and good idea. They've conceded evidence argument that 2AC's smart critical thinking is inevitable. It's only a question of multiple worlds. They've conceded that contradictions make it impossible and make logical decision making, which is the only portable impact because it's accessible to every single facet of everyday life. It makes it impossible because they can cross-apply contradictions, proven by the fact that they kick the alternative and still use the K-links. It also proves that they are not genuine either and leave just as much to the extrinsicness or strategic disadvantage here. They say that our approach to activity leads to a point that people do not want to participate in. Voting negative does nothing absolutely just solve that. Look, in the real world, if you aren't a policymaker, you will inevitably be faced with difficult decisions and skills we learn from difficult debate, which are critical to making good decisions. That's our Steinberg and Freely evidence that I read in the 2AC. This proves that difficult debate that gives you skills is valuable no matter what. Debate does not live or die. Vote out because we've introduced a productive 1AC that normatively introduces the idea that saving lives is good.